prepare yourself.
The opinions of the host and guests on this show are exclusively just that, opinions. That means that they shouldn't be the cause of your state of being offended. Why does everybody get so butthurt?
Okay, let's go. Ready, go!
Welcome to And God Created Woman, where the arguments are necessary for the best make-up sex of your life. Unless you're single, and then we suggest you just go fuck yourself.
All right, Dominic Izzo and God Created Woman show. This one's going to really be behind the third wall of me. I have Johanna. It's not Johanna.
Yeah, yes.
Because where are you? You're in Finland, right?
Yes, Finland, Helsinki, Finland.
What time is it by you right now?
Well, it's just 15 minutes past 6. So I'm 8 hours ahead of you.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking time out there. You're the host of the Vibrant Flow podcast. I saw your stuff on social media. I went through your stuff because I'm always looking for people to contribute to this, and I went, all right, I want to hear more what you had to say because you brought up a topic on your show talking about people pleasing. Before we even get into that, which was the bane of my existence, give everybody a 360-degree view of who you are, what you do, and I want to hear why you got into podcasting in the first place.
That's a great question. So yeah, I'm Johanna. Also go by the name Jo M. That's my music artist name. So I make music on the side. I'm an independent artist. I've graduated as a musician. I've also studied English. So that's my academia side of me, let's say. And so I created this podcast because I was very much living in my, let's say, masculine. I was living on masculine paradigms and I burned out. I was living in pain, literally in pain. And I've still been healing from chronic neuropathic pain. So that's a huge thing behind my story, or the catalyst to this podcast also, which is about embracing my femininity and a softer way of living.
I want to interrupt you for a second. You were living in, it was physical pain or emotional pain?
Well, yeah, it's physical pain.
Did that manifest?
Nerve pain. But here's the thing. What we know about the brain, the human brain, is that physical pain and emotional pain are they're processed in the same place in the brain. So they go hand in hand, actually. And especially with chronic pain, they are really intricately tied together, right? So, but that's a huge topic to go into.
But my question is if you're coming on, you're telling me that you lived in masculine energy. Did your chronic pain, was that brought on from neurologically living in your wrong energy and it manifested physically? Because myself and my host from my night show, we were talking about how certain things like bottling up your words and not using them, or the constant stress that we go through every day manifests into physical pain, if not apathy, massive apathy and weight gain, all this. So did that happen? You were the wrong energy and all of a sudden physical pain manifests from that?
Yes, I would say that was definitely one of the reasons. It was all of it, like emotional suppression and not being in touch with your emotions on a deeper level, and just suppressing as a habit and just being super, super hard on yourself. So I'm always been a type A go-getter, perfectionist, incredibly tough on myself. And I used to take a lot of pride in that. And that was part of the issue, because I was like, because we have this strong, independent woman trope, right? And a lot of women are suffering for it. And I know that different guests have probably touched upon this on your show as well, but it is part of why I do what I do, or why I'm introducing guests to my podcast to talk about a different way of living as a woman, of embracing our biology, our psychology, the way of living in integrity as a woman.
Where can people hear or listen to the Vibrant Flow podcast?
It's available everywhere where podcasts are. As far as it is. It is. So the Vibrant Flow podcast, you should be able to find that.
Great. People pleasing. I came across your stuff and I'm looking at it and you start talking about people pleasing and that hit huge. I was a very big introvert as a kid. I still think I'm a very high functioning introvert. When the camera's off and the mic is off, I drift off into my own world. I want to hear what your views are on it. I want to talk about what causes that, the kind of world that we live in, especially over here in the Western side of the world where we believe that everybody should come before us. I want to hear what we're kind of taught to be selfless, right? Shouldn't we be people pleasers then in the first place? Or what's so bad about being a people pleaser?
That's a good question. Well, there is a lot that we can go into this. So I've thought about the differences between women and men, how they relate to people pleasing. What are the biological, psychological reasons for that? Like the tendencies, let's say, or instincts, and then obviously your upbringing, your family, your background, that all affects how you relate to people pleasing. But people pleasing essentially is not the same thing as being being an empathetic person who wants to help or wants to be of service, which is a beautiful thing. And I absolutely want to be of service. That's what gives us that sense of purpose, right? Mm-hmm. When we're being of service, we're serving other people. But people pleasing is when you are constantly, as a habit, trespassing your own boundaries and limits, and you're sort of rejecting yourself and what is true to you and what keeps you going in the most thriving way possible, right? So there is a clear distinction between being of service and, well, I'm not even talking about altruism, but like just being an empathetic person who wants to help others, right? And be there for others. That's a beautiful thing. But people pleasing is a different thing.
Where do we get? So let's define people pleasing. Is it self-motivated? Are we looking for something in return because when I think of people pleasing, I think of acceptance, right? There's a term I read in a book years ago called performance for acceptance, which is something that women specifically do. They will perform physically for men to accept them. And then I started thinking, well, as a teen, as a boy, of course I would people please, especially for girls, right? Because I wasn't taught to be a man. I didn't know, my father was working, my male cousins were all over the place, and it's always okay, please the women, because when you get Dominic's such a good boy, oh look, they must really like me. But is that what are we doing that for? And then let's go into the dangers of it.
I would say that there's a bit of a difference between what you just related to me with your experience and what a lot of women experience. But of course, there's a lot of similarities. So how I define people pleasing is it comes from fear, right? So it's a fear response and a coping mechanism to keep yourself safe. So, aka not rejected. So, especially for women. Now, I would love to hear your take on this and how that resonates with you. But I know that for women, because we know subconsciously, unconsciously, we know that first of all, we are weaker than men, right? So when we're relating to a man, unconsciously, we are trying to be pleasing because we want to make sure that this man is an ally to keep us safe, right? And with women, then if I'm with a woman, right, the reason why I may, fall into this people-pleasing tendency is because women often feel that they are being connected, like they're feeling that connection, emotional connection, if they are on the same page about whatever, if they're agreeing So disagreements can feel like the connection is being severed, or it's like it's an uncomfortable situation very often. If you're not aware of this, of course, like a mature woman may have been aware of this and maybe working on this, and not all women can relate to this. I'm not saying that, but a lot of women can. That feeling of, I'm trying to be pleasing to you so that we can feel like we are connected, because women like are, development wise, we've been trying to keep ourselves safe by being part of the tribe, by being part of the group of women, just to keep us safe, essentially.
So that makes complete sense. So the first, you're being smart, and that transcends it from back Stone Age days to nowadays, where again we'll throw this caveat in all the time, because you can't say all women, you can't say all men. We know that, we're generalizing, but you do have women they will go after, like a lot of men will say, we're attracted to females based on their physicality. Women are based on men based on what they're able to provide. Well, that makes sense to me if that's the case. Do you not want to biologically over the years be conditioned to be attracted to somebody who can, as you said, keep you safe, put a roof over your head, put food in your stomach? I will go with that. So they're getting the security, they're getting safety. Well, I don't see that as such a bad thing. I mean, that should be a good qualifier for a woman to choose a man that could financially take care of her, because that's what a man's job is supposed to do. So on that level, all right, that's still, we're not getting into the toxic people pleasing yet. I'm okay with that one. So let's keep going. Where's some bad things?
Yeah, absolutely, and I do agree with you on that. It's when, well, let's say it becomes toxic when you are, like I said, when you're constantly trespassing yourself, when you are rejecting yourself, when you don't even know, for example, a lot of women, I feel like, don't even know what they personally feel about X, Y, or Z. They don't know their own opinions because they've been, as a habit, latching on to other people's opinions and points of view, because that's just easier for them. And this really goes back to how you were brought up. Obviously, like your childhood years, we can't ignore that. It affects everything, right? So there may be trauma, there may be a lot of trauma around not feeling safe if you express your opinions. Well, for me, I was brought up with a safe father, an amazing father, but a very strongly opinionated father. And I'm as a personality, my personality is very similar to my dad's, but I also learned that my coping mechanism, or just, automatically took this coping mechanism of not saying what I actually think, for example, or just finding it easier to agree, or just suppressing what I feel, or whatever it is. So it's just a way of protecting yourself again.
That's submission. Yeah, I could see that as being submission, but then again, I see that as that has to be frustration, especially if a woman's going to choose a partner and she's going to suppress her views and whatnot. I don't see that benefiting either the man or the woman, because as a guy, I do like willing submission. I don't want a woman just to submit to me to submit. I want to kind of earn that submission, right? A woman should say, all right, that's the man that I'm going to choose to submit to because of the man that I am. But if a woman's going to limit her ideology or beliefs to keep me happy, that's appeasement. That is people pleasing, and that's going to be toxic. What do we think that does to us? Because again, I could picture, when we talked about the chronic pain in the beginning, I got pictured that developing into psychological issues, neurological issues, pain issues, because you're bottling up who you are. So do we have a history or any kind of theory of individual damage that's doing to a person?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, like damage to who you are. Well, I don't feel like it did real, like if we're talking about actual psychological damage, I wouldn't go as far as saying that. But if you are bottling up your opinions, and your emotions, like for me, it was like certain emotions were not allowed, or I perceived them as not being allowed or not being okay. So I would suppress them as a habit, and it would be very much an automatic response. So this all also sort of it's not about your conscious thinking or conscious choice, obviously, but I think what it did for me, because I can only speak for myself, is I ended up pursuing things that were not in alignment with who I actually am and where my true gifts, for example, are. And I've been unraveling that for years now. I'm 28 now, and the pain cycle started when I was 19. And so it's been a long time, like healing and then feeling really bad again and having those symptoms again and then healing again. And there's a lot to be said about that. But I think what happens with most, especially women, is that they start pursuing things that are not even what they want. Because it again, it's like, for example, if I'm trying to pursue a career or a person, a man, let's say, to keep myself safe from, and what I mean by that is not safe the way we're supposed to keep ourselves safe. Like there's a level to this, like you said, it's only like logical that you would keep yourself safe to a certain level, right? But it becomes a really toxic cycle of pursuing people that your parents would like, or the career that your parents would like, or the career that everyone around you accepts, and the profession that people are praising. And there's so many ways that we can start pursuing things that we think are the safe thing for us and also accepted by others. So it's interesting in dating, for example, women, it's so funny how women, when they perceive, for example, that a man is perhaps an ideal mate, like he ticks all the boxes and whatever, it very often makes the woman act a little crazy, or not like they can't be completely free. Like they can't be completely themselves, because whether they realize it or not, they are so like hyper aware of the fact that this guy is my ideal mate, and I have got to be, agreeable
or I'm
and
gonna lose
pleasing.
them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they compromise who they are. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
But then resentment starts to build, doesn't it? Where then all of a sudden you're going to get your ideal mate. You flash forward, could be 6 months or 6 years, and all of a sudden she's not looking at you the same. She's not talking to you. You're not having sex. You're not involved in it. And she's going to go out and gravitate towards the next male who gives her attention.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
the guy has no idea what hit him.
Yeah, true. And so the responsibility really is on the woman and whoever is in this cycle of people pleasing. This is what I always say. And what I realized myself, and it was a huge eye opener, I can't like expect someone else to solve my problems for me. So my triggers and my limiting beliefs and my people pleasing tendencies, they are my responsibility to look into those and see where they're coming from, deal with them, process them, get help. Obviously, I'm not saying do this on your own, because that's one of the things that women need to like shake off, that idea that we need to do everything on our own, which is very much praised in this society nowadays, and it's hurting women. But yeah.
Do we think is this more, and it's generalizing, is this more of a masculine or female energy to people please?
On like a biological level, I would say, and biopsychological level, I would say it's more of a female thing.
I want to agree with you, because that's when I was at my air quotes weakest, if you will. The people pleasing was when I was in my feminine energy, which was I have to be liked, I have to be this. I wasn't achieving right? It was the achievement was for the acceptance. I was a boy who, like I said, needed that pat on the back, needed that, oh, Dominic, he's so nice. And it was the feminine energy, the softness of that. Men, as we see, especially this in the West or in America, you're seeing men who are, their masculine energy is being stomped down. The people pleasing falls in a different level. The first thing I think of is, I got to make sure that everybody accepts me. So I have to drain myself and give everything to everybody else. And if I don't have, I don't have. Well, we know the dangers to that. What do you see are there any similarities? I mean, not politically, but just socially wise. Are there similarities with our country and your country where you're seeing like men are adopting more feminine energy, women are raising up to that feminist energy and demanding being, the people pleasing? And if so, what are some of the damages you're seeing in firsthand?
Yeah. So in Scandinavia, like in general, like we're considered to be like the mecca of like equality. And I'm saying that like I understand the positive sides of that. I also see the issues that come with that. So yes, definitely we've noticed. I've talked to a lot of women, and we've noticed that men are, first of all, they're encouraged to be more feminine. That's the thing.
Biologically, can we talk about that for a second? Do women on a breakdown, intimate sexual level, do you want somebody who's as feminine and soft as you are?
No.
I don't know why this has to be such an issue that is, I don't like, I fall in social circles kind of like center right out here a little bit. So I'm more libertarian. I don't care who you are, what you identify as, who you sleep with. I refuse to believe that feminists, when they look to procreate, they look for the skinniest, weakest, frailest male to breed with. I can picture that to be cohabitating with, because you could walk all over them. But do you biologically on that level say, I want my eggs fertilized by that little boy? I can't picture that happening. I'm not talking age. I'm talking fragility. Women psychologically can't be just attracted to procreate with that. That can't be what it is.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of women, if they're honest with themselves, they would say that, yeah, that's not the case. They're not attracted to that. But it's this false idea or sense that a lot of women have bought that equality and even with like gender neutrality, which is very much a hot topic here, and like the government is also like pushing that forward and all of that. So the idea that there's not really a lot of differences between men and women, and it's gender is a social construct and all of that. So I do hear that a lot, and also I've been studying in the University of Helsinki, so it's like all of these topics are very much, I've seen them in a million different ways. But so I do see a lot of women being with men that are expressing or are living in this feminine energy kind of way. And the thing is that if these women were honest with themselves, and this is triggering to a lot of women, really, really triggering, is that if they were honest with themselves, they would realize that, okay, they're not happy, or they know that they're not happy, but they just can't pinpoint, okay, what is the reason? Like, and then you start looking for the reason, everywhere that you shouldn't be looking for it. You start blaming the other person, or you're just thinking that this X, Y, or Z is causing our issues in this relationship, but you're not understanding that, okay, first of all, you are masculine as heck, and you're wanting your man to be more masculine, but you are just, also pushing him away from you by being in this masculine state all the time. You don't let him be the man. And it's so triggering to a lot of women, because we are brought up believing that, girl power and feminism is the automatic religion these days. So
My culture, I'm from an Italian heritage, so strong women ran the family, right? But it was never feminism. It was, men did their job, worked. Mom disciplined the kids. Mom, was the matriarch. All this. So I think it's very similar in Greek and Hispanic culture as well too. But we didn't see this growing up. I want to talk about age difference and culture difference here with you. I'm 20 years older than you. I didn't grow up with social media. So how much damage do you think social media has done to perpetuate with the likes, the comments, the engagements, the need to be accepted? I put up my 50th best selfie to make sure everybody loves what I like. I feel rejection when they don't. And then the perpetuation of the polls being reversed and the role reversal. Has social media made this worse?
Absolutely, it has, and I've like been very much aware of this in my own life, and I've had to create clearer and clearer boundaries with social media and myself, where I end or where social media ends and where I begin. Because for a lot of people that it's just, it's so merged and it's terrible. But yeah, absolutely. Because we're addicted to that dopamine hit that we get from social media and especially from likes, from engagement. These people must like me. I must be doing the right thing. I must be posting the right thing. And when a post doesn't do well or nobody responds and, oh my gosh, they don't like me. I must have done something wrong. And it's absolutely hideous, that feeling that you get if you're completely addicted to the acceptance that you get from social media. And I don't know about like Generation Z, like Gen Z people, because I'm a millennial myself, but I think it must be even worse with like TikTok being what it is. I'm not saying that TikTok as a thing is bad, but I do believe that it has perpetuated the dopamine hit issue even further with the way it works. And
it's exponentially easier to grow on TikTok very fast in the beginning, and then you get that. I have to wonder what damage this is causing on a individual and obviously relationship level, because think about all these people who are trying to become influencers. You got 50,000 or 5 million people following you, yet you're at home interacting with one person. We have to believe that individual relationships take the back seat when it comes down to being an influencer or trying to be that, because your subscribers, your followers are far more important to that instant gratification dopamine than your man walking out of the room and going, wow, you look beautiful today. His comment is going to mean nothing to you versus I need 60,000 likes on this photo.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true. And I do believe, though, that you can create boundaries that enable you to, have a bigger following on whatever social media platform and do this work if you have a deep enough reason why, right? So those that are more balanced, let's say, or have clear boundaries, they've been working on that for a long time. They have had to face their fear of people pleasing or the lack of it, or not having the response that they are craving. And they need to have a clear, deep why for what they're doing. So that's what I try to really, because I don't have a huge following.
You're self-aware. There's a difference, though. Most of us are not self-aware like that. And at a young age, too, 28 years old, you're that self-aware. Okay. Do people need to inject this as a part of their daily regimen? Okay, I'm growing. I'm building my social media. I'm doing content. I also have to keep my ass in check so I don't go off the deep end here. How did you become self-aware enough to wind up monitoring your destructive behavior?
Well, once you hit a wall and you realize that, okay, just, picking up the phone is causing you anxiety and just making you feel like crap in your own body, like, that is a huge wake up call, right? And for me with the pain, that was part of the cycle. And so it wasn't just anxiety, but it was actually pain also. So, which is just anxiety on a bodily level in that case. But so that was a huge wake up call. And when you hit that wall, you need to make adjustments. But I don't know. I really do worry about younger people who are addicted to this people pleasing pattern. If they're constantly on the edge of not quite, hitting a wall, but, constantly being a little agitated. Because the thing is that our generation, my generation and the younger generations, they are so used to this feeling of being a little agitated all the time. Like being, having this cortisol pumping up in your body because of social media, because of these constant, triggers and constant.
You have no right. You have no idea how correct you are. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you are saying something that is so true. If I'm not arguing or fighting some kind of battle, I don't care if it's business, I don't care if it's a comment war. I've noticed this about myself for decades. Why can't I just be at peace and happy? If I am not at a state of competing for something, I feel less than, and that's downtime. That is, idle hands is the devil's workshop. When I'm not competing, I am open to not being me. So you're talking about this. That makes complete sense. It's like you need an internal antagonist for your story. And sometimes this garbage that we go through, that's ours.
Yeah, exactly. And it is incredibly addicting to have that feeling of constant cortisol pumping in your body, the stress hormone, right? And because it keeps you going, right? The whole point of your body being flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, is that it enables you to, for example, run from a bear, and it gives you energy. It really does. It gives you a lot of energy. It, keeps you going. And obviously with, the constant, everything is on all the time. And you have this expectation that we need to be on all the time, which is especially detrimental for women. It's detrimental for everyone, but especially for women because of our hormonal makeup. But so that may even feel good at times when you are addicted to cortisol, when you are addicted to that feeling of being a little agitated.
Your hormones are huge, right? I'm a male, so when I hit 40, I started doing testosterone replacement therapy, and it made a great difference in my life because that's the hormone for us. Women's is estrogen. We're seeing food. We're seeing. I honestly believe that, especially the phones, the nonstop pumping in of information, cortisol, hormone. I came off the internet for 40 days last summer, and I dropped weight like it was nothing because the stress wasn't in that state. Does it play a part? Because I don't know this as far as cortisol or this hormone issue. Do we think that and again, I think it's social media more so than anything. Do we see the polarizing shift in the roles? It has something to do with that stress. Like, can men maybe just not handle the stress as well as women, so women become more masculine energy, and men's energy is to become more feminine because we're overloaded? Do you think that there's anything involved with that based on the social media and the need to please?
Yeah, it could be. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on that, but I've thought about that, and I would say so. Yeah. And it's just, but there's a lot to be said about that. Like, men in general, testosterone levels are dropping, like, as a whole, which is an issue, right? But that has to do with like what we eat, how we live, blah, blah, blah. So it's not just one thing. It's not just social media or whatever. But I feel like men don't even realize how, or when they are given permission, let's say when men are given permission to be really masculine and to lead and to take charge of their lives, then they do feel this huge empowerment that is rightly due. Like it's a beautiful thing to see.
You are
happen.
you're so right. And it's, we shouldn't have to ask for permission, but we do. It's way before your time, but I'm sure you're familiar with Rocky Balboa, the character from the movies and the boxing movies from the 70s and 80s and all that. In the second Rocky, everyone thinks it's a story about a boxer, and it's not. It's actually a story about, it's a love story. And in the second movie, here's Rocky Balboa that's going to go and he's going to fight for the world champion against Apollo Creed in a second fight. And his wife, during a pregnancy, just goes into a coma and he stops training. He just doesn't do anything. He doesn't leave her side, won't even see his kid until she comes out of it. And she was against him fighting again, Apollo Creed, because he was getting brain damage, all this shit. And the movie goes to the third act where she comes out of the coma and he's in bed next to her, standing at her side. And she goes, "I want you to do one thing for me." And he goes, "What's that?" And she goes, "Win." She gives him permission. All of a sudden, then you get the training montage. He goes, he wins the fight, all this. There is something. And I don't know if maybe this resonates with you. I do like permission. And this is going to seem weird. I got to qualify this a different way. I will be a man no matter what. But it fucking feels really good when you're dating a woman who gives you that nod, if you will. The movie 300 is another reference, if you've ever seen that. Gerard Butler's about to kick the emissary into the well. He's the king of Sparta, but before he does, what does he do? He looks at his queen, and she subtly nods. It's like, yes, we're on the same page. I'm giving you that alignment and permission. Men, we want to conquer all this. Why does it feel so damn good for us to get that? It's permission from you women to be men. And do women not see that they have influence and even power over men, and they have to give that more? Right.
Well, a couple things come to mind. First of all, what I understand about men in my own experience and what I've been reading about this is that men love acceptance, appreciation, and admiration, right? And to be a hero, which men love to be, as far as I'm, I've seen and experienced, part of being a hero is that when you go and do something heroic, whatever it is, it could be, fixing the toaster or opening the door for a woman. I'm not talking about, conquering a dragon essentially, but part of that is the fact that you do that to gain the admiration and acceptance and appreciation of the woman, right? And the nod, the permission, as far as I understand it, it's like you are not forcing something on a woman, because that doesn't feel good, right? Mm-hmm. If you're like forcefully trying to be a hero, that's a completely different thing. And I would even argue that then you're not even being a hero, because heroic actions are always like they're requested or they're asked for. People want to see that. They're asking for it. They're praying for it, right? So even with a woman, what makes it heroic is because the woman wanted that. She wanted to be helped. She wanted to see that strength in that man, to whatever capacity, it doesn't really matter. But yes, so the nod, the permission is that, or a woman communicating with a man and saying, yes, I want to see you prove yourself or prove your strength to me or protect me, whatever it is. I want to see that. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Good.
That's a people pleasing for your partner, that there should be nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. And that's not you trespassing yourself again, right? That's not you doing something out of fear that you are going to be killed or cast aside or rejected or that you cannot be yourself or whatever. Of course, for men, you have this rite of passage kind of thing that, becoming a man and entering into manhood requires X, Y, and Z, and you really, start stepping into bigger shoes, I guess. But it doesn't come from that toxic place of, okay, if I don't do this, then I'm going to die, and these people actually don't like me no matter what. Like it's that constant fear. I'm never going to be enough. They're going to find out. What was it called? Like the Imposter Syndrome is part of people pleasing. It has to do with other things as well, but it's part of that. So
with the Imposter Syndrome, then you have to keep the act up, don't you?
Yes.
And then you're not you, and it becomes extremely exhausting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think at some point that we've all done that, right? You want to be a pretender. You want to be accepted. Where are we now with the role? With what damage does this doing for women, right? When they're in way too much masculine energy, they don't have the balance. We know when men don't have I think men are easier to see the damage for the balance, but women, yeah, they could do anything. They don't need a man. Women don't need men for anything other than procreation lately. It seems financially you can take care of yourself, open the car door, take yourself to dinner, pay your own bills, all this stuff. Man, the joke is you need somebody to kill a spider. When you are becoming, I guess it would be autonomous on that part. You don't need anybody. What damage are we thinking that could happen long term to women as a social gender? Right.
Well, first of all, that act of like I don't need no man or whatever, it's usually just an act. Like it's not true. And if a woman were to be honest with herself, she would come to the conclusion that actually she wants that. But what it does is hormonal imbalances, issues with the body, like our hormonal cycle gets all messed up. And when, especially like for a woman to live in this constant state of cortisol pumping, that state of all the time, it does a lot of damage. And it's worse with women than it is for men, because our bodies are not built to be in that constant state of stress hormone flooding, right? It does really a lot of damage to our reproductive health, fertility. And the sad thing is that women today don't even think about their fertility before they want to have babies, right? So that's when they start thinking about it, and then they realize, okay, I've been doing this and that. I've been on the pill. I've been living this incredibly stressful lifestyle for years. My work has been my everything, and I've been hyper independent. And you realize, okay, you have issues. You can't. A lot of women face this. They can't conceive. It's hard to get pregnant, and yeah, that's just for some women it's a huge wake up call. But it's sad if it happens only then when you actually try to get pregnant. But otherwise, it messes up with our relationship with men in general, right? So what I noticed, for example, in my marriage, I married when I was 23, and then because I wasn't like aware of my femininity, none of these things that I talk about these days, I didn't ever think about before. It wasn't a thing, right? So, and I was still in that, state of like, I want to be an independent woman, right? And it didn't do any good for our relationship. And I noticed that I was constantly in my masculine, or I was pushing my husband away. I was discontent. And this is a huge thing. Discontent, this constant discontent that women can't really pinpoint, like, why is this happening? Why am I constantly not actually happy? Like, I have these accolades, I have these whatever I've achieved, and this job that I like or love, it's all possible, but I'm still like not really content. And for me, it was a huge wake up call to see that I was causing that. It was on me, right? I needed to have this moment with myself of realizing, okay, first of all, I'm pushing my husband away. We're not like either of us, like we're not happy in this situation. Things are not like we're not having sex or whatever it is. And it's because I'm not happy, right? And I needed to see and take a good look at my life and how I've been thinking about myself, how I've been relating to my husband, which has been, there was a lot of emasculation, right? So that's what I love to talk about because it was something that I definitely had a lot or did a lot, right? Emasculating men in small ways and just by insinuating something that's like weakening men or taking away their power or trying to lift myself up on the, you know, the expense of a man. There's so much. So women, essentially, they're not happy. That's the damage.
The power of that. I went to a seminar a long time ago. We were talking about why people want stuff, right? And the guy who was giving the seminar talked about, like, you know, why do people go to the gym? Well, somebody will say, I want to go to the gym because I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Well, because I want to go to the store and I want to buy a pair of jeans. And why do you want those pair of jeans? Well, I want those jeans because when I put them on, you know, I want to look in the mirror and like what I see. Why do you want that? So that when I go out, people will compliment me. Why do you want that? So I'll feel good. So why? So I'll be happy. Oh, so you want to be happy. So it doesn't matter if it's a car, a boat, a house, a person. Ultimately, you think that thing's going to make you happy. It blows me away how many people will get with someone for status and they're not happy. I'm torn with you have to be happy with yourself until you be happy with somebody else. I'm torn with that because I don't believe that you can be fully content with who you are unless you're exercising your energy with the recipient. So as a man, yeah, I can be very happy independent, but as that masculine energy needs an outlet. Well, to my nieces, it's going to be a protector, right? To my sisters, it's going to be a protector, an older brother. To my parents, it's going to be a son. To my friends, it's going to be whatever. To an audience, it's going to be a voice. But that primal male energy of the totality of where it's all in, that can only be given to one person and not multiple sexual partners, but one person. So I don't think at all I would be totally happy without it would be like a toaster. You go out and you buy the highest end toaster on the planet, but unless you plug it into a wall, it's useless, right? You don't get that wattage. Mm-hmm. So I think it's got to be the same thing. Did we get to that? I mean, did the 1970s do us damage with I'm independent, I don't need anybody? And is it wrong to admit that we may need someone?
No, it's not wrong. It's definitely not wrong. And it can be the most liberating thing for a woman to admit that. But here's the thing. It's not like encouraged. If you say, I need a man, it's like your girlfriends are going to be like, girl, no, you don't. You know, you have to be that strong, independent woman, and you are betraying the sisterhood if you are admitting to the need of connection and
which is bad because men need to be needed. I'm sorry. Yes. One of the greatest things in the world, we want to feel like we do. I specifically remember 23 years old girl I was extremely in love with. She goes, she goes, you don't need anyone. And because I need you. I'm a very weak beta male, but you don't. And for my entire life, it's been, I like fucking needing somebody. I want to need someone to have that access into the totality of who I am. Women don't get that. Men want to be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because men are created to be the providers, right? So it comes naturally to you when you give yourself the permission to be a provider and protector and to like you said, direct your masculine energy to create or to provide for someone, to contribute, right? In that sense. So it's a beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful thing, honestly. If all as women, we could just, you know, come to that point of realizing that that's what it is. But so many women are just living in this self-deception, essentially, that first of all, with all the narratives that we have around men, that we need to keep our guard up all the time. And I'm not saying don't have discernment. Obviously, please do have discernment and be wise and protect your heart, right? But it's a different thing than keeping your guard up to the point of rejecting men and not showing your vulnerability, right? So being vulnerable is so powerful. It's so beautiful when we let ourselves be vulnerable. And for a feminine woman, like feminine essence woman, I don't care if the woman is like acting up all masculine and thinking that she's thriving in that state of constant hustle and constant, go, and constant, like, I don't need a man type of state, right? But it's so liberating and it creates connection. And women are really built for connection. I'm not saying that all of us aren't. Like, yes, we are as human beings. But for women, it is a huge thing, like connection. And then for men, it often is like purpose is maybe a little stronger as a motivator or as a value, but connection is a huge thing for women. And even for me, like I've been this type A personality as long as I can remember. And I am really passionate about so many things and super like aware of my purpose and always like getting more clarity on my purpose and wanting to be the brightest version of myself and expand in different ways. But still, I know that without the connection with my husband, for example, it would not be satisfying.
In the last 10 minutes, I always like to talk about solutions, right? Because we lay out problems, so we have to start talking about solutions. How can somebody evaluate whether or not they're in a position where, yeah, I'm doing damage to myself by pleasing people? Well, what's the first step where they need to look at that?
Well, we can't really talk about this without talking about, your childhood and going back there. So seeing where those tendencies, where did they start cropping up? And what was the purpose of those? Because there's always been a purpose, like even your subconscious mind, it doesn't do things like randomly, right? There's a purpose, even if it's a toxic coping mechanism, there has still been some purpose to that to try and keep you safe. So looking back at your childhood, is there any trauma? Like, yeah, we all have trauma to some extent, and seeing why and what was the reason. Like, what is the payoff? What is the payoff of people pleasing? For each and every negative pattern or behavioral pattern, right? There's a payoff. And for people pleasing, you need to get clear with yourself what the payoff is. For me, it was just the feeling of being safe, being accepted, right? And then evaluating, is that real? Is that based on truth? Is that sustainable? And then I highly recommend all kinds of somatic ways of like looking at how the tendency lives in your body. So this is just, to see how your nervous system reacts to different situations. So because so much of our patterns, they're almost automatic, right? So your nervous system, your subconscious mind is always on board and it's calling the shots in most cases if it's something that you haven't been able to, shake off for years. So looking at how your body reacts, how your nervous system reacts in a different situation, right? Or if, for example, if you are being asked to do something and you don't want to, but you are such a people pleaser that you always want to say yes, right? Because you don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable, and you want to seem agreeable and likable, and you want to make sure that this person is an ally, right? See how your body is reacting. Can you slow down? Can you see, like, if you're feeling this anxiousness, pressure in your chest, in your throat, or anywhere else in your body, breathe into it. Like, this is just like that moment to moment practice of bringing awareness and slowing your responses down. Because if you're like really quick, yes, yeah, we'll do that. Like, it doesn't matter
That's
what
conditioned.
the thing is.
That's very conditioned to a world where we're instant, nonstop instant. That's really going to be difficult for a lot of people to do. I mean, you're talking about that, and I'm borderline getting anxiety going, you got to slow down. I got to go, because we're conditioned to be that way. But continue,
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah. That is so true. And I've had the same struggle for sure. And so slowing down, as hard as it can be, it really is the key to unraveling the mess that your responses have become, or your mind, your nervous system, your subconscious mind, and how you perceive that situation. You don't even have the time to see it from a broader view, right? You don't have that broader view because you're reacting so quickly. And then afterwards you're just thinking like, why am I feeling so anxious? Like, why am I feeling these things in my body, right? Because you were just on autopilot and you didn't realize what was happening there. So slowing down is a huge part of that. And then of course, making sure that you are clear on your values, which is a huge thing. What is actually important to you? Like, this has been so alive in my sphere lately, and I've been having to work on this. So for example, looking at, 5 to 8 values, writing down values that resonate with you right now, really resonate, not like, well, I think this probably is like what I think is my value. Like this, it makes sense that this would be my value. It's not like that, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be like this full body. Yes, this is important to me. And then when you have 5 to 8 of those, then narrow it down to 3. And then you have your core values. These I cannot live without. And then making changes. How can I communicate my values? How can I be more clear? Because clear is kind, right? So you don't have to be nice, and being nice is part of people pleasing, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to make the distinction between being nice and being kind. You can be kind and be clear and stick to your boundaries. You don't have to be that, nice guy or a nice girl, right? Mm-hmm. So because that's not real strength. That's not even kindness, really. If you are saying yes to something that you don't even want to do, and you resent doing that time and time after, time and time again, you're not being nice or kind. Sorry, you're not being kind to that person. You are actually lying, and it at the end of the day doesn't help anyone.
No, and you're actually being unkind to yourself as well too.
Yes.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Tell everybody where they can, because we have so much more we could talk about this stuff. Number one, we'd like to have you back on. I definitely want to talk about some male issues.
Would be lovely.
Oh gosh, we have to get men to see that it's okay to be masculine and move forward, and find that balance, especially to find out what women crave and need from that. Tell everybody about your podcast, where they can listen to you, how they can support you, and how they can connect with you.
So on Instagram, I'm at the Vibrant Flow podcast, and at Joem, so JOEM music. And my music website is joemmusicofficial.com. And my podcast, the Vibrant Flow podcast, you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I also have a Patreon for my podcast listeners. So yeah. That's where you can find support.
Me. What topics are you going to be covering next? Like, what's your next podcast topic, you think?
There's a couple of interviews that I have coming up, but what I'm talking about is polarity in marriage, like how to, keep that tension, that sexual tension, how to, spark up your relationship again, and how to feel, juicy. With God
knows we need so much that we thought that's a great topic to have, because I have people on there who love it. So we'll have you back on and talk about that one as well too. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is another episode of And God Created a Woman show, where we talk about everything from relationships to keeping it juicy. There you go. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Johanna, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that.